So as I said, we're talking about automation right now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up. Let's see. Well, we'll make a new song for this automation today. We'll kind of go over it, and it's similar-ish to Pro Tools. If you remember the Pro Tools automation, if you don't, you probably want to go have a look at that again, just to kind of remind yourself about what automation is and what it does. But in a nutshell, automation is doing things automatically. It automatically changes stuff for you. It's auto mode. It auto does stuff. So anytime we talk about things that are auto, that means it does it by itself, right? So automation in Ableton Live, Pro Tools, Logic basically means that we can set certain functions or parameters to change over time automatically. We don't have to keep doing it by hand. So in Pro Tools and Logic, it works exactly the same way. You can record in the automation, and when you have automation onto a track, you can also draw it in. But once it's on the track, the automation is king. So the automation takes control of that parameter, and you can no longer change it by hand and let it stay. So if I have a volume level and I set it up here, and when I put automation in and to drag it down to here, if I click on it, I can move it around, but once I let go, it's going to follow that automation automatically every single time. And I have to, if I want to adjust that volume later on, I have to go ahead and move the volume automation line. But in Ableton Live, it's different. In Ableton Live, automation is not king. Live was developed so that you could do it, you could use it live on the stage. So in that regard, if I have automation on a lane in Ableton Live, yeah, James, I got you. If I have automation on a lane in Ableton Live, if I change that automation at some point, it's going to stop following the automation that I've recorded in previously, and it's going to go ahead and do whatever I'm doing currently. Let me just show you an example of that. So let's say here I've got a drum kit. Let me just go ahead and put in a drum beat. We're going to go ahead and, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and record that in. Cool. All right, and we'll go. Awesome. Record a hi-hat in on top of that. Very like 80s kind of drum beat. Speed that up a little bit. Okay, cool. So let's say I have this automation in here. I'm going to go ahead and take this and copy and paste it into my arrangement view. And I'm just going to drag it out like this. So we have an 8-bar loop here. So we can see here, over time, I've got my drum beat that goes for 8 bars. Let's make it 4 bars. Okay. So it goes for 4 bars like this. And what I'm going to do is just make it so that it fades out over time. So the way I do this is I click on the A key to bring up my automation lanes. I can also click this button right over here, right there. This is my automation lanes. Turn that on. Here's my automation lanes. Now, anything that I click on will become automatable. So if I want to automate my volume, it's right here. If I want to automate my panning, it's right here. I click on it and you can see the automation lane changes. If I want to automate my sends for my reverbs and stuff like that, I can just click on it and it changes it to there. I can also drop down a list of different automatable parameters right here. Hold on, my friend stole my cable last night and now my mouse is acting up. Of course my mouse is acting up if I don't have it plugged in today. The Bluetooth is not working correctly, and my friend ran off with my cable last night. And I have like 1 million cables in my house, and they're all in Brooklyn right now, and not in Manhattan. And this is gonna drive me nuts. I feel like this is gonna be a problem today. And it's only a problem because my friend ran off my cables. My friend, if I had all my cables here with me, of course, it would be fine. There we go. All right. I figured out though I can just kind of restart my mouse to get that kick started whenever it has a thing. Oh, what's up, Charlize? How you doing, man? All right, there we go. So I also have a list of stuff here. So for example, I've got my mixer, and I can go into my mixer and I can choose anything from my mixer. Those are all my instruments that are on my track right now because I got my drum rack on there. In the mixer, we can see I've got all this different stuff here for my mixer that I can automate right here. Now, if I don't want to see anything, I can click on this one here that says show automated parameters only. And now it's only going to show me whatever I've automated. If I haven't automated anything, then all I do is I just click on the parameter to change that to my automation lane, or well, that's what it should be. Hold on a second. Let's go show all parameters. That's what it used to be. All right, so show all parameters. Now let's make this fade out over time. Find him. So we go over here, and I'm just going to click where I want to start my automation. I'm going to click on bar 2 here, and now I'm just going to drag this down like this. Boom, and there's my automation. So if we listen to it, it fades out over time. Right, there we go. If I want the automation to go away, the point, I just click it and it goes away. I don't have to hold down Command or Option or any of that stuff that you do with Ableton, with Logic and Pro Tools. So I can just click and drag it up and down. I can drag it left and right. Right now you can see it's locking into my grid here. You can see it's kind of here. Let me make my grid wider. It's moving by the grid. If I don't want it to move by the grid, I hold down my Command key and it stops moving by the grid. Okay. And all the automation tips and tricks that we used before with Pro Tools still apply here. So for example, if I wanted to fade down and then back up again, what I'm going to do is I put a point here where I want it to start fading, and I put a point where I want it to come back up again, and then I put my automation in the center here. And so it returns back to its original place. And that's just a little trick that I use just to make my automation easier to get back to my starting point. Yes, and James says, now we can bend the line with Option finally. Yes, so you hold down Option, and now you can put a curve into the line. Absolutely, yep. I don't know why they haven't added it into Pro Tools yet. It's so weird that it's not in Pro Tools. But there you go. You hold down Option and you can bend that line there. So if I want to fade down and fade up, I've got this here. Starts fading back up again. There you go. And that's how we do automation in Ableton Live. Now, when I've got my automation lanes open in Ableton Live, I just click and drag across like this, and it deletes the automation. Whenever you're doing any kind of highlighting in here, it's not affecting the clip itself, it's affecting the automation lane on the track. So for example, if I wanted to just like make this last beat here quiet, I can just highlight it, mouse up. See when I mouse over to it, see how it turns that part blue? If I go over here, let me just mount more of it here. See how it's blue here? And notice how it gets this number right here, that 0 dB. Well, what that number is telling me how much I'm adjusting the parameter by. It tells me what my new level is. So I click and I drag it down, and I'm adjusting it by minus 20 dB. Now if I mouse over it, see here it's minus 26 dB. I can drag it back up to whatever, 11 dB. So if I do this, if I just start here, you can hear it gets louder and quieter. Let's go ahead and put a different parameter on here. I'm going to go ahead and put on a auto filter. So I've got my auto filter on here. Let me just move my utility here. And I'm going to explain why I have this utility on the tracks. Every single track I have a utility on, and I'll explain that here in just a second. We're finally getting to why I have that here. So I've got this here. Here's my auto filter. If I want to control any of my parameters on my auto filter, all I do, again, is just click on the parameter that I want to control. So I click it, and now you can see my automation lane here becomes my frequency. If I click my resonance, it becomes my resonance right there. I can also click and drag down a list of stuff, but I find that to be a bit pedantic. It's a little bit hard to choose in the list. It's a little bit, for my brain, it's a little bit overkill to see every single parameter on the list there. So I just click down here, and now I can control it. So let's say I want to put a frequency adjustment on here, like with a filter. Let's have it fade up over the first couple of bars. So I click where I want it to end up at. Here, let's go all the way up. And I'm just going to put it down here in the beginning, like this, put a little curve in using Option and drag. And now, if I go back to the beginning, start over, There we go. All right, let's do that again. Cool. Let me go ahead and move this over here like that. And now what I'll do is I'll also fade it down again here at the end. And let's do another little option drag on the curve there. Start it from the beginning. Cool. So you can see, let me go ahead and loop that. Command L to loop that section of the song. And so we can see it does this curve here. And this is for our automation. Now, if I want to take this and move the automation and take the clip and drag it around, there's a couple things we got to keep in mind. Let me turn off my loop here. If I drag it out like this, the automation is not going to follow my clip. See how it just stays right here? And this is very similar to how Logic or Pro Tools works. If I wanted to take this clip with the automation, I can just click on it and the whole clip is selected here. And I hit Command D and it duplicates the clip with the automation. And that's how I can make it kind of loop over and over again. Which is great, okay? But let's say, for example, that I do not want to have the automation curve follow the clip. Maybe I want it to just kind of do it once and then and then just go to a different frequency. So I can click on this lock over here. The lock means that the automation is not going to follow the clip. So I click on the clip here like this, and I hit Command D. And notice that the automation does not follow it. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a new automation point here. Let's put it right there. So now, anything that I move around, if I hold down Option and drag this over, it's not going to bring the curve, the automation lane with it, because I turn the lock on. The lock locks the automation into place, so it no longer follows your clips. If I have the lock turned off, if I hold down Option and drag it over, it follows it around with it. So that's how we lock our automation into place. Now remember our pencil tool up here on the top, right up here on the upper right hand corner. This pencil tool allows me to draw automation in. Right now I've got my grid turned on, so the automation is going to follow the grid, so you can see how it does steps like this. If I turn my grid off, I can just draw in the automation like this. Okay, so we can see how that all works there. And let me go ahead and undo that. And another cool feature, and this is a feature that's new with Live 10, and I mean Live 10 is not new anymore, but it came in with Live 10, and that is automation curves. So if I wanted to put like a curve in here, like let's say I want to do like a kind of a shape, what I do is I highlight where I want the shape to happen, and I right click and I go down to Insert Shape, and I can just duplicate that shape out like this. So now and you can see it's following that shape. And I can also go over here and I can adjust. If I highlight the whole thing, if I click and drag across it, I can adjust my low points and my high points of this. So I can bring that shape into the middle here. And you see how my curve disappeared is because I clicked on my resonance and made an adjustment to my resonance here. What is up, Eric? How you doing? All right. So once I've got things highlighted in here with my automation, there's a lot of cool stuff we can do with it. We can take and drag. If you mouse over stuff and you kind of drag around, see how my cursor is turning to like an arrow? Because you can see in here there's like these points. See, there's a point there and there's a point there. I don't know if y'all can see how clear y'all can see these, but these little boxes that appear in here, these little boxes allow me to make adjustments to the curves. So I can flip the curve here like this. I can take it, I can move it over like this. This is like your curve adjustment boxes. Make it bigger. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so right, and you can see how I can mess around with that and manipulate that. And again, just like with anything else, in order to get better at it, you really have to practice this stuff and do it over and over again so you can get good at how to use it. But that's all your different shapes and stuff like that that you have access to. If I wanted to put a shape on the whole thing as a whole, I can right click on it, go down here and draw a shape in, insert shape. So if I want to do like a fade out, I just put this shape in here like that, and it does like a nice little fade. Let me just pull that up like this. Okay, and so that's how you can do a nice little shape on it like that. And that's basically your automation here in Ableton Live on the main channel. So this is your main automation, and this is all explained here in the notes. Over here, arrangement view automations. And it talks about it down here. The track automation works very similarly to Pro Tools and Logic. The automation follows the clip unless you turn on the lock envelopes button. And one other thing here that's really important is to view the track automation, hit the A key, and then the plus and minus button allows you to add automation lanes. So if I wanted to, for example, have an automation lane on my filter frequency, over here on the right hand side on the track, we can see here's a little plus button here. So I click on the plus button and it puts the automation down here on the bottom part. And there's an arrow key now that I can just open that up and close it so I can see my automation or not. So let's say I want to have some panning in here as well. So I just go in here, let's put some panning in, right click, put an envelope in here and duplicate that out. Highlight that whole thing. Oops. And put that kind of a little bit more in the middle here. If you have headphones on, you can hear it kind of going back and forth. Actually, I'm going to change that curve to, yeah, that kind of a curve there. Let's change it to this one. There we go. A little bit better. Okay. I don't want it to be completely left and right, but there we go, cool. Okay, so you can maybe hear that a little bit better. Okay, so I've got these two here. So I'm going to click plus on this one as well. So now down beneath my clip is where all the automation is we're gonna see the automation. So if I'm in auto mode, but I want to actually just mess with the clip itself, I can just, now once I've got my automation lanes down beneath the track itself, now we can actually edit the clip up here, Command E to edit, to separate, and I can do my editing even though I have my automation turned, like my automation lanes visible. I can now edit my clip as usual because all my automation is actually happening in this drop down menu down here. So I can take this and I can move it around and we can see that it's doing this stuff as we go. What is up, Staffo? How you doing? Okay, so again, all this stuff is, you have to practice it. It's not something that's just going to come naturally to you within one day. You have to do this over and over and over again to become an expert at it. So if I wanted this here, we can see here. Listen. Right, so let's just do this. I'm just going to take this and drag it up like that. Okay, here it's kind of popping in like that. What I'm going to do in order to stop that is I'm going to drag this over like this, put a little curve in it, and I'm going to take this one and duplicate it. Now, one of the things that it's like tricky to get used to is that if I mouse over here to the right, let me just zoom in here and demonstrate this to you. This is something you have to get used to, is that if I mouse over to the left here, see how it's grabbing that blue part? It's grabbing that automation section. I don't want to grab the automation section. What I want to do is I want to actually highlight the whole thing like this. Well, I have to be really careful about where I put my mouse on the screen, because if I put it up here, it's going to grab the dot. If I put it over here, it's going to grab that line. If I put it over here, it's going to grab the center line. And where you put your cursor really changes what you're actually doing, what you're selecting. And that's hard to get used to. That takes a while to get used to. And I see people struggle with this all the time, and they get really frustrated. There's no easy solution for this. You just have to do it and practice it until it becomes easy for you to put your mouse in the right place. Just like with playing tennis, if you're playing tennis and you're constantly hitting the ball over there or over there, that's not because the ball is defective. That's because you don't know how to play tennis. Like you just haven't practiced enough on practicing on like your swing and your angle of your racket and stuff like that. And the only way to get better is just to keep doing it over and over and over again. And if you can never get it, then maybe you should stop playing tennis. It's not the same with this, because it's not like this isn't like a super quick thing. You can definitely get this, and if you're not good at it, you just have to go slower. So when you're selecting a certain section, just make sure that you select the right part, and you just keep working at it until it actually happens for you, until you get better at it. Okay, so that's that. So if I play, cool, all right. Okay, so a couple things here, just like kind of recapping what I just talked about. Unlike in Pro Tools, automation is not king in Ableton Live. Automation can be overridden. Just adjust the parameter that you want to override. The current automation will turn gray, and Live will follow the parameter's new position. To re-enable automation, click the Re-enable Automation button. So what I mean by this is, if I have this filter frequency here, this line down here is my filter frequency. So if I hit play on this, and we look down here in the bottom right-hand corner of my screen, you can see that frequency is changing over time. And you can hear what it's doing. I'm going to go ahead and loop this whole section. Go. Okay, so we got that in there. Now, if I wanted to, let's say I'm listening to this and I say to myself, you know what? I don't want to hear that frequency automation. I want to just put it at a frequency and listen to it. So I just click it and drag it. And now, see the little red dot turned gray? And if I go look at my screen up here, that automation is now gray as well. And I've got the line in here showing me where my new parameter setting is. So if I move this around, that gray line is going to move as well. My automation showed up top because I've been clicking on it down here. Because remember, whatever parameter you click on down here is what's going to show up top. So I've got this in here, and I can make adjustments. I can set it, but it's not going to follow that automation. Now, if I wanted to set like a new setting and say, this is where I want my starting setting to be, I can grab this old automation and I can drag it down to this level. So this is really useful for finding levels for stuff. Okay, and now what I can do is I can turn this automation back on. And I turn the automation back on by clicking on this little button right here. When I click the button turns gray again, and the automation turns back to red, which means that it's enabled. So any parameter that I grab and move around with my mouse or with a knob or whatever, it's going to turn gray. So let's take a look at our panning over here. You can see the panning is going left and right. It's got a little red dot on it to show that it's automated. So if I click it and move it left and right, now the panning automation line turns gray, and there's like a little red line in there now. And if I re-enable it by clicking on this button up here on the top, there we go. Swift says, what was it that finds the levels? I don't understand the question. I mean, I just did the levels by my ear, and I'm just looking at what I'm doing on the screen. There's not like a thing that finds the levels for you. It's just you're looking at. Maybe you're talking about this red line right here. I'm not sure if I really understand the question, but this red dotted line here shows you where the level is on the screen. When you move that, you'll see it. Like, I think really what you need to do, I think the answer to your question really, Swift, is once you use it, you'll understand better how it works. I think that's the answer to your question, is that dotted red line here is, I think, the answer. All right, so now let's talk about this utility plugin down here real quick. If you remember, let's see, is there any other pages in here? Oh, there are pages. Okay, yeah, actually, before we talk about this stuff, let's talk about this utility plugin down here. This utility plugin here, if you remember in Pro Tools when I was talking about doing volume changes, I actually recommended that you put on the gain plugin. And don't do the volume changes on your fader. Do the volume changes in your plugin, on your gain plugin. The reason why is because when you're doing volume changes like fades and stuff like that, later on, if you want to have a mix of something, it becomes really tricky to deal with the mix when you have a whole bunch of automation lanes happening all over the place. So let's go ahead and put in a here, let me plug in my hard drive. It has my sample libraries on it. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to put like a loop in here. And there we go. Cool. So I'm going to grab some loops in here. Let's grab some, hold on. Let's grab a Ableton. Yes, Paul. You are very observant. That was a good contribution. Let's grab this one in here. Let's see what these things. Okay, let's grab this one and drag it on here. Boom. Drag this over like this. All right, cool. So let's say that we want to have a volume fade on here. So what I'm going to do is, instead of just clicking on my my fader over here on the right-hand side, this is my volume level here, and putting in a curve, let's just go ahead and let me just show you that real quick. I'm going to right-click on it and put in like a fade-out curve. Actually, let's do it a little bit shorter here. Boom. There we go, like that. There we go. Cool, so there's some fades there. A couple of guys are asking me about sampling and stuff like that. Yeah, come back in 2 weeks, I'll be talking about sampling. And then you have Ableton Live. Great, 1,000 questions. Well, this is a good place to hang out. All right, so I got these fades on here. Now, the problem is, if I'm looking at this, I'm like, all right, I like the way this fades, but overall the music is maybe too soft in general. So what I can do is, if I want it to be louder, I had to actually go back and readjust this automation here. So if I say, okay, I want it to be a little louder, then here, let's go ahead and put this in like this. And I find my new level, then I have to go in here and adjust my automation curves to make them louder in general, and then go ahead and click that, and it makes them louder in general. And that's okay. I mean, you can do it that way, and for years and years I did do it that way, but there's a much easier way to do it. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to delete my automation on here, get rid of all this automation there, so there's no automation happening at all. It's just, actually, if I want to delete it, the easy way to delete it is click on the parameter you want to delete, hold down Command and hit delete, and it deletes your automation from that parameter. Just real quick, notice over here on the right hand side of my screen, right here, see it's got a red dot. The red dot means it's automated right now. I'm just going to click on it and hold down Command and hit delete, and it deletes the automation. The red dot disappears and the line goes back to being a dotted line. So now what I'm going to do here is, instead of using my volume level here, my fader on my track, I'm going to use my utility plugin. Now I have it set up so every time I make a new track, it pulls up a utility plugin with that track, whether it's an audio track or a MIDI track. It pulls up that utility plugin. And the reason why I have that on there is because my MIDI tracks, sometimes I want to have them go straight to, I want to have them set up ahead of time. It helps me move a little bit faster. What you can do, if you want to have a plugin on a track when you make the track, if you just want to automatically default to having a plugin on there, it's like some people like to have EQs on there, compressors on there. In my case, I like to have a utility plugin on every single track. What you do is you put the plugin on the track with the settings, and then you right click on it and you go to save as default audio track or save as default MIDI track. Paul, I'm not going to be answering your questions because those are so off topic. It's not even funny. I appreciate your questions, but that would derail my whole conversation right now. So what I'm going to do here is I've got my setup, so it's a default, so it's got the utility on it. So we can see here, here's my utility. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my gain down here in the lower left hand corner, click on gain, boom. And on the gain parameter of my utility plugin, I'm going to put my my fades on that. So I go over here, put a fade, boom, duplicate that. Now it's going to have this fade on it. Now, if my overall level is too loud, I'm just going to make the adjustments on my fader here. Okay, so now I can adjust my curves without adjusting my overall level, but I can also make adjustments within my mix really easily to the overall mix, and that's going to really help me a lot in the future when I'm moving fast. Now, if you're only working with a couple of tracks, this is not going to be a big deal. This doesn't start to really become useful until you're working with like 100 tracks within a song or 70 tracks within a song or something like that. When you've got a whole bunch of things happening, you've got a really complex mix happening, these little things like having the gain, having your fades on a plugin are going to be really useful. If you're only dealing with like 10 tracks, it's not going to be that big a deal. It's like super easy just to make little adjustments here and there with your automation lanes. And that's how I used to work back when I first started out, was I would just do everything with my automation and not worry about it. But as like my mixes got more complex and things started happening more and more with my mixes, things like that, it became a lot better for me just to grab my fader. If I go over to this screen here, just to grab the fader and move it, and move that fader to adjust my level for my overall mix. All right, let's go ahead and drag in a percussion or something like that loop. Here, we'll drag this one in here. Oops. drag this guy in here, the top loop. Grab a couple. All right, there we go. Cool. Okay, so we got these in here. Let's drag these in to the other view just to show about how this stuff kind of works. I'm going to change out of my automation view. I hit the A key. Remember how this works with our dragging stuff over into our arrangement view. So see how they're grayed out? That's because I copied and pasted them in. I'm going to hit F10 and I'm just going to go ahead and drag them over like this. And let's see here. We'll call this one perk 1 and perk 1, and this one will be hi-hat loop. There we go. I'm going to put these up here. Oop. Yeah, like that. Cool. So with this one here, just to kind of recap what's going on here, if I wanted to go ahead and put like a filter loop, let's put a filter. Let's take this one, let's solo this up. I took the clip and I copied and pasted it into the arrangement. Yep, I just hit Command C to copy and Command V to paste it. So I go in here and let's see what kind of an interesting effect we can have for this one here. Let's see, audio effects. Oh, let's use the grain delay. That's kind of a cool one here. Now, one thing about using the utility plugin, it's a little bit annoying, is you want to keep the utility plugin usually on the right-hand side. I'll usually kind of wait to do that until I've already messed with all my plugins and I put them all in there, and then I'll drag the utility to the right. The reason why is because you want this gain to act as much as the fader as possible, and that really happens if you have it at the end of all your plugins. Yeah, you do have to bring everything into your arrangement view. Yep. So let's go ahead and put this to like this. So let's say I want to take this and adjust this over time. James says, can we have another utility plugin in the beginning for phase correction? Absolutely, 100%. The utility plugin, the cool thing about the utility plugins is they do not affect the audio quality at all. Remember, you're dealing with digital here, and unless the plugin is designed to change the quality of the audio, like for example, some old analog emulation plugins are designed to change the the quality of the plugin as an old EQ or compressor would do. Unless it's designed for that, it's not going to change the quality of your audio at all. So I can have a million utility plugins in here, and it's not going to change here. Let's just listen to this. Let me delete these. Let me take this off actually. So this is what it sounds like. Once I put the utility plugin on here, it doesn't change. Nothing changes because the utility plugin itself doesn't actually do anything until you make an adjustment here. So I can have one on this side. This one over here would be for my gain levels if I'm doing any kind of automation. This one here could be to flip my phase. Or if I wanted to take it and make it mono, I can use it to make it mono. And this is really useful if you want to make it mono in the beginning so everything stays mono throughout the whole. If you want to put a bunch of kind of signal processors on there that are more mono and not stereo, then you can use this mono to make it mono right in the beginning. And you might have a couple of different utility plugins in there for different things. There's nothing to tell you not to do that, and I recommend experimenting with this kind of stuff for sure. Some things that I use the utility plugin for is I use it for mono. I also use it to make just the bass part mono, and you can set where that's going to happen right here. So for example, if you want all your frequencies below 100 hertz to be mono and everything above 100 hertz to be stereo, you can put this bass mono button right here. That's pretty cool. Also, if you want the whole thing to be mono, that's great. The other thing that's really useful with this is the stereo part here to flip the stereo. So for example, if I go over here to this one, here, let's solo this out. I can flip the stereo, swap the stereo. Well, it's really hard to hear with this one, but don't forget that it's there. I don't have any plugin sample in the top of my head that I can show it to you effectively, but this here will flip your stereo. The other thing is you can adjust the width of something. So for example, if I have, let's go back to this one. So this grain delay makes things really, it adds this like really weird effect to it, right? Well, that effect, if I want it to be less wide, not super crazy like this, what I might do is I might have a utility plugin here to just adjust my width. So it's still stereo, but it's not quite as stereo. See, that's like really out to the sides. And this one pulls it a little bit more in to the center. And of course, if I put the width at 0, it's gonna have no, it's gonna be mono effectively. So let's listen to that. Here's what it sounds like mono. Here's stereo. If I had put this past 100, it starts to get really weird sounding. I don't usually recommend putting it past 100%. It doesn't really make it more stereo like what you'd want it to. Like people, you might think like, oh, if I put it past 100%, it's gonna make it way wider. It doesn't exactly work like that just by itself. You'd want to use it in conjunction with some other third-party plugins to really make it really wide. And then again, we've got here, we can swap the left and the right. That's what it sounds like with that. That's what it sounds like swapped. I did have a friend the other day who was asking me a question. He was using a ping pong delay, and he wanted the delay to start on the right side instead of the left side, I guess because of how it worked in conjunction with other of his effects that he had, or other sounds in his mix. And he really wanted to start on the right side and not the left side. And there's no easy way. If you go into your delay here, it's this one, I believe, yeah. So in here, if we put it into ping pong mode, there's not really an easy way to tell it to start on the left side or the right side. So here, if we do this, right here, how it's like that. If I hit go, let's turn the feedback down a little bit. There you go. Okay. Put the dry wet up a little bit. Right, you can hear it starting on the left-hand side. Well, he wanted to start on the right-hand side for whatever reason. So I told him he was like trying to do all these. He was like really lost about how to do it. And I was like, oh, it's actually really easy. Just stick a utility plugin on there and swap left and right. Boom. And now it starts on the right-hand side and goes the other direction. And he was like, wow, that's it? Yeah, that's it. So the utility plugin can be really, really useful for utility things, just super basic things that you want. Every DAW has some kind of a utility plugin or has some way to get to these features. And you really want to familiar yourself with that, whatever that plugin is. So for example, in Pro Tools, they have the gain plugin. And then I think, I don't know what you would use for some of these other things. It's probably spread out amongst a couple of different plugins, and I don't really mix in Pro Tools anymore, so I don't know what plugin would be useful for all this stuff. But I believe the gain plugin has the phase swap on. Actually, the track just has a phase swap on it in Pro Tools, so you wouldn't need that in a plugin. In Logic, there's also a gain plugin, but Logic has relative automation and absolute automation, and so you don't need a plugin to do your trim automation in Logic. You would actually do it a slightly different way. So anyway, let's go back to this. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to my grain delay, and let's say that I want to adjust these parameters here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at and see what parameters am I adjusting here. And I'm adjusting, right now it's adjusting the frequency and the pitch are the two that are on this dot here. So if I want to come down here and kind of do this kind of a thing, well, there's a couple of ways I could do this. One, I can go ahead and click on the frequency, put my automation back up, click on the frequency here, and you can see over here grain delay frequency, and let's say over the first two bars I'm going to make this kind of just rise up. So I'm just going to put it where I want it to actually. Let's do it right here. I'm going to use my pencil tool, put it right there. Boom, where I want it to rise up to. Get rid of that. Whoops. Put down like that. There we go. Cool. And again, this way that I'm doing it is just kind of something that I've developed that I've just from using it so much. Actually, if I start off in Live 10, what I would do is I would get more used to using the automation here. So I'm just going to take this and drag it up over time. Boom. Well, actually, let's see. Let's do a ramp up with this one. There we go. Like that. Get rid of that. There we go. That's super easy. And then I would do the same thing with my pitch. So I go my pitch here. And the same thing. We're going to put a thing in here. Whoa. All right, there we go. Cool. And if I mouse down here, we can see this is where it gets started. All right. Let me make this a bit bigger. Yeah, you can see that's a really, really wide throw. I don't want the end part down here to be quite so far. So I'm going to bring it up to 24 like this. Let's have it come down more. Let's have it start lower. Like that, yeah. Cool. Okay, so you can see how that works there. Now, that's one way to do it. An easier way to do it in this case would be to actually just grab this and just make adjustments and record it in real time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all my automation there. I'm just going to Command delete, click on it, hit Command delete. And now I'm going to move this around in real time and record that in. The way we record in automation is I click on this little button right up here, and now I can record in my automation. And it doesn't matter if the track is record enabled or not. I think I have it set for that. There's actually a preset for, a setting. Let's see how I have it set. I think it's just set for, just hit, make sure I'm not recording enable any tracks, and then just hit record and hit go. Yeah. Cool. All right, there we go. And let's go ahead and hit play and listen to that. Cool. All right. So that's how that works. Now let me just explain what's going on here. And this in the notes for today, if you're in my class, it's in the notes here. So we want to write this automation in. We want to perform it in, performing automation changes. So we're going to go into our preferences, record, warp, launch, record session automation in. All tracks are armed tracks. So what I'm going to do is we are going to go into our preferences here and go into our record, warp, launch, and it's right over, where is it? Wait, maybe it's, actually might be in a different place. Hold on. Yeah, right here. There we go. Record session automation in. Armed tracks versus all tracks. I prefer to keep it in all tracks. What this does is it means that this little button right up here is your automation record arm. Now, the reason why I like to keep it in all tracks instead of just my armed tracks is because if you have it set for armed tracks only, that means you have to have the record button turned on for the track, arm button, and when you're actually recording it in, it can record stuff over stuff in the automation in the arrangement view. So I recommend keeping it in all tracks. That means that you do not turn on the record arm button over here on the right, this button right here. Do not turn that on. And whenever you have this on and this one here, it's going to record your automation changes. But you have to be careful about that, because if you make automation changes, it can mess stuff up for you. So let's go over here. I'm going to undo that. There we go. And so you see here, it is my doggy sleeping. Yes, totally my dog. Yeah, you can hear it. I think you can hear it. No, it's funny. But yeah, the dog is sleeping on my lap. She's a cutie. So if I wanted to go ahead and make recording in here, so I just hit. You notice how it's not recording anything, even though I have this turned on up here. It's not recording anything. In order to record my automation in, we have to make sure that we hit this record button as well. So that's why I don't want to have armed tracks turned on, because I don't really want to have to arm my tracks. And if you have tracks armed, it's going to actually record over what's in there. So it's a little bit weird that that's an option. I think that's more an option for people who are mostly doing stuff in the session view. If you're doing like live performances and things like that, it kind of makes things maybe a little bit safer. But if you're using the arrangement view, or at least the way I use it, I make sure that I don't have any armed tracks if I want to record automation in, and I have this my record button turned on for my session, and I hit go, and now it'll make recordings. And you saw the screen was flickering. The reason why the screen's flickering is because it's actually recording two different sets of automation at the same time, and Ableton Live was kind of flipping back and forth between it. If, let's say that I have like an auto filter on here, and I throw my auto filter in, I just record the auto filter here. So let's go ahead and do this one. So I'm going to hit the record arm button, which is F9 if you're following shortcuts. Right, and I can just like that. So let's go ahead and drag this first one down a little bit as well. Cool. There we go. So I just go down here and, oh, thanks. And so I hit play. Let's go ahead and listen to this with everything else though, because it's gonna be more interesting with all this other stuff playing. Right, and this kind of makes the sound a little bit more interesting. Right, we got this bar. Okay, and so having the automation on here, this is where things really start to come alive, and you really start to make these tracks pop with the automation. I do not teach Logic. I just teach. Hey, what's up, Brazil? I just teach Ableton in Pro Tools. I don't really. I mean, I know how to use Logic, but I don't really teach Logic here. This is actually an SAE course from New York. Cool. So that's what's up here. Let me just show you real quick the dog that is sitting on my lap. This is what's going on here, and this is what you're hearing is this little fuzzball here sitting on my lap. So it's so funny that you can hear that, but yeah, she's a heavy breather. Anyway, all right, cool. So, all right, so that's the basics of automation stuff with the arrangement view, and this is like, it's very similar to like Pro Tools. It's all right here in the notes here. To record the automation in Ableton Live, you must turn on the automation arm button and the arrangement record button. If you are in the arrangement view, make sure you do not have any tracks record armed. So, oh yeah, she's super cute and she's super comfortable. You can follow her on Instagram. It's as good as it griffs, because she's a Brussels Griffon. Griffs is Griffs, as good as it griffs. And I post pictures up of her daily because she's too cute to keep to myself. I can't stand it, how cute she is. All right, so let's go back to the beginning here and talk about clip envelopes. Now, clip envelopes are a little bit different. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all the stuff in here. I'm just going to delete all the stuff. Let's go ahead and, before I delete it though, let's grab over here. And let's grab this music one as well. Make sure, boom. Okay. So we're going to grab all this stuff. We're going to delete it all out of here. And any kind of like automation that I had in here should be deleted now as well, because I do not have my lock turned on. If I had the lock turned on and I hit delete, you can see down here in the corner, I have automation on these two parameters. You can see the little red dot is there. And I can go ahead and highlight these and hit delete. And the red dot should stay on there because I have the automation lanes locked in place. But I don't want to lock them. I want them to delete out, so I'm just going to hit delete. There you go, and see the red dots disappeared. So now they're all gone. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just, we're going to talk about doing something very similar, but we're going to do it into the session view here. So before I do that, I'm just going to go ahead and copy the names. Oops, let's go ahead and this is going to be my 808 beat loop. And I'm just going to copy the names of these clips in here real quick into the clips, just because I like to have everything looking a certain way. And I have some macros set up for this on my keyboard, and that's why it's so quick to copy and paste. Is he frozen? I don't think I'm frozen. Am I frozen? Hello? No, I don't think so. Yeah, Kai, why don't you just go ahead and restart your Twitch and or refresh rather. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit play. Let me get rid of this. There we go. Okay. So all the stuff we just did, we're gonna do it again. Now, let me save this real quick. Automation. 10 W12. There we go. Automation. Boom. Okay. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're just going to do it in our session view using clip envelopes. Now, clip envelopes are very similar to what we just talked about with automation. And just as a reminder, everything we just discussed is very similar to Pro Tools or Logic. So if you're using Pro Tools or Logic, it's all very similar-ish. There are some differences, but it's similar-ish. What we're about to talk about right now is very different from Pro Tools or Logic, because in Pro Tools and Logic, you don't really have clips the same way. You don't have a session view, although Logic does have their kind of live looping thing that they've got nowadays. Thanks, Kirby Barbie, I appreciate it. I'm here like often. So here, and I'll put let's see. Well, you can hit me. I guess there's like a way that, I don't know if there's like an independent chat way or something like that, but yeah, Ableton Live is, oh yeah, you should definitely use Ableton Live. All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and put filters and stuff on these things using the clip envelopes. And the clip envelopes are just in Ableton Live, and they're for your clips. So let's start with our beat loop here. We have our filter here, delete you. And I'm going to go in here, and in order to get to see our clip envelopes, go in here. And our envelopes button is this one down here in the lower left-hand side. So you click on this and it shows you a different view in here, which is our clip envelopes. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and we can see that we've got some automation in here. I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of it and just hit delete. That got rid of it. So we can see this line here is our automation for this thing. So let me go ahead and stop all the tracks from playing. Here's my beat loop that I made earlier on. And what we're going to do is we can use the same right click and automation points we did before. So I'm going to highlight the first, let's highlight 2 bars here. I'm going to right click and insert a shape like that. And I'm on my frequency here. So now kind of bring it down a little bit. Get rid of that top part there. Cool. Yeah. And that sounds pretty good. That sounds very similar to how it was sounding before. Okay. Now, that's all well and good, and it's just going to keep looping like this until I hit stop, because the frequency is now looping within the clip, and it's all set for 2 bars. Everything's looping at 2 bars. But what if I wanted to have it do this frequency loop for 2 bars, and then for another 2 bars, I wanted it to do a different frequency loop? So let's go ahead and set that up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to unlink the loop right here. Every single parameter has this link button here. So I turn this off so it says unlinked. Now, what you'll see is that all my actual MIDI data disappears, because what we've just done is we've separated the parameter loop from the actual MIDI loop. And this is like a really heady, mind-twisting thing that we're talking about here. And it's better if you don't try to worry about it too much. But essentially, the clips in Ableton Live, every single parameter and the data, the MIDI data or the audio data, is all separate clips within one clip. So if I unlink it, now I can do with this clip anything I want. So now my frequency, I can have the length of this one be 4 bars. So my first 2 bars are this down filter, and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to have this second 2 bars be an up filter, not all the way up. Let's have it just go to similar-ish to where we just were. And I'm going to make a little line here like this. Cool, I'm going to drag this over like that. Boom, like that. And we'll go like this, drag this one over. Cool. Now, you'll notice that when I'm mousing over stuff, imagine getting used to this and moving to Live 11. I mean, that's a funny thing to think about, James. I don't think Live 11 is going to be that different. I think Live 11's not changing the way we're doing envelopes so much, is it? It's been a while since I've looked at the preview for Live 11, but I think Live 11, the main thing that it adds, the main thing is the playlists, whatever they call playlists. I don't know. It's now you make me want to go look at that preview again. So in here, see how it says, when I mouse over it, I can see what my level is there, and it's at 2.80 hertz or kilohertz, and over here 2.31. So that's very similar. So now if I go in here and I go down, that's a little bit too far down. Cool. I can highlight everything and pull it up. Actually, let's highlight this end over here. Everything, not just the stuff that's moving. Cool. And you can see it's adjusting, it's leaving the bottom part alone. There we go, let's use it like that, okay? I'm just gonna get rid of these little points here on the end just because I'm OCD about that stuff. Now, what I want you to pay attention to is if I click on my notes over here, the notes is a 2-bar loop. But if I go back to my envelopes, the envelopes is a 4-bar loop, and that's because I disconnected it, I unlinked it, right? Let's move over here to our hi-hats here. And the hi-hats, remember, on the hi-hat loop, we had our grain delay and our auto filter here. So let's go ahead and hit play on this. I'm going to turn off my auto filter. Okay, so let's go ahead and record in to my loop here. I'm going to hit my record button here, my session record button, and I'm going to record in my automation into these 2 bars, but I'm going to unlink the, here, let's unlink those 2 parameters. So I'm going to go over here and unlink my frequency. unlink it. And my pitch, I'm going to unlink that as well. And it should, actually I've never tried this before. I always do it in the other view with this kind of stuff, but let's try this and see what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and I've got record on up here for my session, my session view record. And I'm going to hit go. And now, because I have my automation turned on here, see how it's everything just turned red? That's because now I could record automation for anything. So let's go ahead and record this in. Okay, so it looks like it just recorded the 2 bars. So if I wanted to actually make it go beyond 2 bars, I would have to do it by hand. So I'm going to double click on this and let's just go in here and say, okay, that's fine, whatever. I kind of expected that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unlink this. I'm going to set it for a, let's set it for an 8-bar loop so we have some place to play with. And I'm going to go back over here to that was my frequency. I'm going to go back to my pitch and set that for 8 bars as well. And the reason why this is more complex is because it is 2 parameters at once. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to have the pitch go up, not to 12, let's have it just go up to like, I don't know, like that, and go back over to my frequency. And the frequency, we're going to have that one rise up over time as well, over these 8 bars. So now let's listen to it. I'm going to turn off my auto filter here so we're not hearing that, and I'm going to hit go. Cool. Okay, and that's okay, but I think the 8 bars is maybe a bit long. Let's do 4 bars instead. So I'm just going to go back over here to my 2 that are turned on right now, and not my auto filter, but my grain delay. And you can see the 2 that I've got that I'm using here are red. Now, if I don't want to show any of these other ones here, I can show only my adjusted envelopes. And this is like after you're done changing things and stuff like that. I can go in here and make changes to this. Let's change this one to a 4-bar loop instead of a 8-bar loop, and I'm not going to have it go up quite as much. Let's have it be 4 bars, and this one here as well, 4 bars, and let's not go up quite as much. This 4 bars, boom. So I'm just going to take a look at these. Yeah, so it looks like it'll be pretty good. Let's listen to it. Yeah, that sounds really cool. Now let's have that auto filter change every 2 bars. So I'm going to go over here to my auto filter, turn that back on, and let's show all our envelopes again. I'm going to click on my filter here and frequency. I'm going to record this one in. Let's start off nice and low here. Cool. All right, so we're going to go ahead and record that in like we did before. So I'm going to hit go and I let go. There we go. Cool. Awesome. And as soon as I let it go, because we're in Ableton Live, as soon as I let it go, it's just going to start looping it. Cool. Let's go over to our music filter, our music loop. Let's put a filter on this as well. I'm going to turn my percussion on. Now, you notice how what just happened is I made an adjustment because it's a little bit loud. What's up, Sebas? It's a little bit loud, so what I'm going to do here is I made an adjustment to it, but because I had everything turned on, it went ahead and put that in as automation. I don't want that to be automation, so I'm going to hit Command-Z to undo that. And just make sure that nothing is record armed. I'm going to turn it down a little bit here. There we go. Turn my record arm back on. Go back to my music loop here. There we go. Cool. Now if I just go up here and click on my automation arm button, it's going to stop recording everything. And there we go, we're good to go. Huh, that's funny, yeah. Except you can ask questions in this video right now. All right, so that's basically automation envelopes. I know I'm going really fast here, but like I said before, it's really a matter of you practicing this stuff. Like I'm showing you how to do it and everything, but really what you got to do is you got to go and practice it. So let's just go through the notes here real quick and talk about a few things. So clip envelopes, and this is session view. These are automation data that loop with your clip. To access the clip envelopes, click on the automation button in the lower left-hand corner. That is right down here in the lower left-hand corner. You can see my mouse over here jiggling around. To choose the parameter you want to automate, click it in the plugin, or you can drag it, you can drop it down in the list there. But the easiest way is just to click it on the plugin. You can unlink the envelope's loop length. To make automation loop length different from the audio loop length, in the envelope window, click the linked button and then adjust the loop length. Each parameter can have its own loop length. So what we do here is, let's say I wanted my hi-hat. Let's put on this music loop here. I've got my automation filter here, and right now you can see it's linked. It's just a 2-bar loop. If I wanted to unlink it, I can click on this unlink button. I can change the length right here, and now I could take this and duplicate it. But let's just make it a little bit lower here the second time around. Let's solo it out. And you can hear the difference. Cool. I can drag these through to make sure it's a smooth adjustment. Whoops. Cool. Now, one thing with Ableton Live is if I click on a point and I drag it through my other points here, it erases the points, and that's very similar to Logic. It's very different from Pro Tools. So if you're used to how Pro Tools does it, it's different. Ableton Live does it more like Logic. Let's go back. Let's see here. Okay, so this is just a diagram of it. So the envelope button is here. The audio view. If I have like an audio loop or something like that, that's like basically if I go over here, I'm looking at my audio view. It looks like this, and I can go in here and I can put a frequency loop. Now this is actually really cool. Let me just show you a really interesting thing that you can do with this. Let's say that I have let me get rid of all this stuff here, and the utility. Let me get rid of all this stuff here as well. Boom. So I don't have any of these loops in here. Yep, cool. Everything's linked up. Okay, so let's say that I wanted to just grab one piece of this. I'm just going to loop this like this. Like this. Okay, so I have this right here. What's up, Flower Beat? And I got this right here. Now, let's say I want to make this a little bit more interesting. Let's do this. Okay. Right now, that's super boring, but I can make it interesting by messing with my envelopes. And even though this is just an 8th note of a loop here out of my sample, I can now make it more organic and change it over time by disconnecting my frequency, unlink my frequency here, and just set my frequency back to 1 at the start and have it be, let's have it be a 4-bar loop. And actually, no, let's have it be shorter than that. Let's have it be like this kind of a thing. Let's see, like this. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead in here. I'm going to grab an envelope shape. Cool. Cool. And you can hear it's a lot more interesting. Now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that low end. Awesome. Let's put a filter, on here with the gain as well to change things up a little bit more. So with my gain, let's unlink this one as well. I'm going to move it back to the beginning, which is something that I just like to do. Do that again. And you can see how I start to really make these like really weird polyrhythms and stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying you should make something that sounds like this. It doesn't sound great for me, but you can start to get really things that kind of shift and change over time. Actually, I was just watching the movie Tenet last night, the new Christopher Nolan film, and I watched it a couple of weeks ago, and then I had some other friends who wanted to watch it. And it's the kind of movie where I feel like 3 times is the magic number for that movie to really take the whole thing in. Because the first time you watch it, it's just like, what just happened? It's just like pretty explosions and planes crashing and things happening. And then the second time you watch it, you start to see how the story fits together. And I feel like when I watch it one more time, I'm going to really have an idea of how everything ties in together. I really liked it. I know a lot of people are saying it's like, oh, it's like, just over the top and too nerdy and stuff like that. But that's the kind of stuff I like to get into. Anyway, that's not my point. My point is that the music in the film, I don't love it. It's not his normal, who's his normal guy? Somebody help me out here, his normal person he works with. It wasn't my favorite music. I actually like the person he worked with a little bit more. I just can't remember his name right now. It's a new person. Yeah, Zimmer, Hans Zimmer. Thank you, Joe. And it wasn't Hans Zimmer for this one. The music was definitely more electronic. And what was very interesting about this, even though Hans Zimmer is very electronic as well, what was interesting about this was that there were parts of the movie where it was a lot of percussive synthesizers. And they had the same percussive rhythms. It was very minimal, with these similar rhythms happening in different sounds. And the rhythms were kind of complex, but they were minimal, so they kept repeating. Even these complex rhythms kept repeating, and all these polyrhythms and stuff happening. And it's like, when you know how to do this stuff, it becomes really interesting to see when people do use this stuff, because this is how you can do that kind of stuff, is by taking these clip envelopes and disconnecting them and having them doing different rhythms over time and with different instruments and stuff to shift things around. And it really felt like he was probably using modular synthesizers with LFOs set to different lengths of time and stuff like that. And that's essentially, what you should really be thinking about with these clip envelopes is think about them as LFOs. These are essentially envelopes that loop, which is just what an LFO is. An LFO is just a waveform that loops over time to connect stuff. Now, you might be going, wait, hold on, Tony, LFO, what? If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, come back next week, because starting on Monday, we're going to be talking about LFOs and synthesizers. So that's when we're going to be doing a deep dive into synthesizers. Well, deep dive. relatively speaking. Deep dive for people who've never worked with synthesizers before. But next week is when we're going to be doing sound design and stuff like that. And that is going to be on, what was that, January? Today's the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th or something like that. My brain doesn't work with math very well. But yeah, on Monday, we're going to be talking about synthesizers and stuff. So anything like LFO or whatever is going to be explained more deeply then. Let's go back into the notes here and just see what we've got here. Okay, so clip envelopes, any parameters you've automated will have a red dot, which we've talked about a couple times already. And clip envelopes stay within the clips, whether you are in the session view or the arrangement view, volume, transposition. All other envelopes, plugins, and mixer parameters change to track automation. So if I've set some stuff up, let's go over here to this one. Let's hit play. Cool. So if I take these and I copy and paste them into my arrangement view, and I drag them over, what we're going to notice is happening, if I hit A, some of these parameters, some of these things like the frequency and stuff like that, have become automation parameters, and other ones like volume, stuff like that, I didn't actually have anything on my volume, or panning, stuff like that, will stay within the clip. And that's how Ableton Live works. So you got to make sure that you understand that things do flip over. Now, in here, we can still have this stuff as, let's see. I'm going to undo that. Let's go over here to this. Boop. Let's see. There we go. Okay, that was like a weird glitch. So over here, this is my, it's in the clip. It's in the clip. It's a clip envelope. But if I go over here, it changes it into the like an arrangement automation lane. But I could still actually put it back in here as a clip envelope. I could draw it back in. Let's see. Let's go back over here. Come on. Stop being weird, Ableton Live. Copy that. Let's paste it back in over here. It'll let me put it in as a clip envelope. But here's the thing is, it's no longer, you see how the curve changes here? Well, this is like, this is a weird thing, and this might be a little bit too much for some of y'all right now, but for a few of you in here, I do want to explain what's happening. So when we bring things over here, see how the line is now, it's a green, it's like a blue line instead of a red line. Well, what that is that is a relative amount that's happening. So if I have my, here, let's take a look at this. Oh, come on. Hold on a second, let me zoom back out. Let's get that loop correct. There we go. So what's happening is we have this blue line inside of the parameter, and we have this red dot here, and we have where the parameter actually is. You'll see these are all running at different places. See how the blue line is moving different from what's happening in here? Well, that's because the blue line is actually a relative automation that happens within the plugin. If I go ahead and delete this automation here, whoops. Now, this automation in here it runs inside of everything, and it runs as a clip envelope, but it's a, what's the way to describe, it's like now it's relative to whatever your setting is. So let me go ahead and smush this in here. There we go. So it's relative. You'll notice that it shows percentages here, and the percentage is a percentage of the overall setting. And this is kind of weird to get used to. So if I go over here and I set this like this, and it's within the clip. So now it's a percentage of that, 100%. And I can adjust this. And this is great for anything that you want to loop and stuff like that. It's really bad for anything you want to have happen like over time, because then you have to start dealing with disconnecting, like unlinking your clip envelopes and stuff like that. It's like a weird thing, but really really useful to see that it's there and kind of start to wrap your head around it. But that's not going to happen in one session. And you can see here, see how this turned like this kind of bluish color? That means that you've got clip automation happening in there. But when you copy and paste stuff over initially, let me delete this. When I copy and paste stuff over initially, now it becomes track automation. And if I want to loop it like this, I have to hit Command D on it. So something that you have to be aware of there. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording there.